All right. So, Christy, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Dan.
It is the 3rd of January, 2025. And we meant to do this podcast New Year's Eve, right?
hmm
But here we are. Such is life. We had a lot of people. That's our excuse. How many did we have? What was the total?
I think it was 22.
22? Why did I feel like it was more than that?
Well, who slept at our house for nearly a week? It was 22.
22. Wow.
But we had some friends, come over and join us
Yeah.
and other extended family come and join us for like Christmas dinner.
So, for Christmas dinner, if you add the guests that came in,
We were at
uh,
26.
26. Well, that's something, huh?
Yeah.
It was good though. We had a great time, and we won't get into all that on the podcast here, but that is our excuse. But today, what we wanted to do is start off the new year with a podcast and talking about maybe we could do a little retrospective.
hmm
Not too much because I think forgetting the things that are behind and pressing forward.
High
Um,
five.
yep. But I think the main goal today is just to talk about what we see happening in our lives in 2025. And, we don't have to go too specific, but, just what we're feeling. And I, we are, I hate to put this out there, but that's the only way to make it accountable. We are committing to doing a podcast every Monday. I
Oh,
am committing. Dan is committing to doing a podcast every Monday. That may not be Christy. That may be other guests, but I'm going to try my best. It's one of my goals and things that I am writing in my journal.
which is an amazing journal, by the way.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I could put a link in the description if anybody's interested, but this is just a little thing. I think Santa got it for me, so
hmm I think it
it's
has
it's
some good prompts, right? You were
yeah,
mentioning.
yeah. For me, it's helpful because you know it has like a vision board, and I won't show you it all because that's private. But annual goals, and then there's a daily. I'll show you a blank page here. How about that? There's daily goals. What's on your mind? What am I grateful for? My daily affirmation. 3 goals for today. Oh, wrong finger. Here we go. 3 goals for
Mhm.
today. Personal growth. Today's good deed. My biggest win. I don't do everything every day, but I have been doing a lot of thinking, and I think that's a good thing.
So let me ask you, with writing this stuff down, do you feel like it has given you more motivation or a little more excitement maybe toward accomplishing some of these things? More
Yeah.
thought surrounding these specific things that you're writing down?
It's a really interesting thing because I don't. I would love to talk to somebody who knows about this, but writing something down just cements it, which I
Mm.
don't want to be true. It seems
Mm.
because anybody knows me, I am against woo woo stuff,
Well,
and it's
you're
borderline woo woo. This is borderline.
I don't know.
I'm sure there's some psychology here that actually makes it true.
So one big so we've obviously like opposites attract, right? So you and I are very different.
Very different.
One of the areas in which we are different is that I used to be religious about writing down New Year's resolutions.
I was very against them.
And you were like, no, I'm not doing it. And I think I just kind of fell off the bandwagon with that because I was like, this is not to blame, but it's like, he doesn't really value it. Probably a lot of people don't value it. Are you coming back around to be like, maybe it is, there's something to this writing things down thing, it sounds like.
I think the part about New Year's resolutions that I never liked is it's once a year. And I feel, I guess I'm pretty pragmatic in that I feel like you should constantly be bettering yourself and making
Mhm.
resolutions. And so if we're doing that once a year, I feel like you're setting yourself up a little bit for failure. Like,
Mm.
whether you focus on your New Year's resolution, if you're a January person, or whether you're a first week of January person, or you're a 1 day person, you're just
Mhm.
throwing away the rest of the year. So for that reason, I resisted it. And, but I am a goal person, and the book, has a place for daily goals. And
Mhm.
so I'm not calling them New Year's resolutions. I'm just saying I'm going back to having distinct written down goals.
Mhm.
And
So it's like making
yeah,
to-do lists. Like that's something
yeah,
that my dad used to do. I think I picked that up from him. One of the first things that he would write on his to-do list was drink coffee. And I do that sometimes. I've gotten away from making to-do lists too, and I do when I need to, like, when we're having a lot of people over,
Yeah,
I'm making lots of to-do lists, lots of grocery lists, all this stuff, but, um, drinking coffee and dad being able to cross that off of his list because he knew he was gonna do it, I mean, there's something to that.
it's an easy win.
It's an accomplishment, it's a
Mhm.
small one, but it absolutely gives motivation toward, moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's something there, but, to go back to your question, I think writing down my goals, it's only January 3rd.
Mm,
So, I will tamper all expectations on what I'm gonna accomplish this year, but it definitely has a sense of, accountability, I guess, is for me.
mm,
For example, some of the things I've been written down. So, one of the thing I dabble in, I'm a big side hustle guy. I love side hustles, and I'm a I'm trying to build up a business, internet marketing business around Amazon influencer, and we could talk about that in some other episode, what that actually means. But what that entails is making videos for placement on Amazon. So I've been writing almost every day, and what's my daily goals is create one video. And I've had that goal. Christie's heard me. You heard me talk about that, like have a goal. But when I write it down, I feel way more accountable to get that done
mm,
because it's written down. Which again, I hate that that's true because it seems so silly. Just because you write it down, now it has to happen. But it's true. There's some power there.
mhm. The written word.
Yeah. Way,
I don't know, we
way
can
to go to make it all spiritual. Ask Christie.
you know me. Yeah, so you're leading the way in this because I've kind of gotten away from the daily goals but I will say at the beginning of the year, I am definitely regrouping surrounding our children's education.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I'm reaching out on different Facebook groups and learning more about, like, scholarship opportunities. We have a kid in high school now. Just looking for I know, it's insane, but just looking like, I'm just trying to regroup my thoughts, I guess, surrounding that. So I'm definitely making more goals connected to that,
Yeah.
and to some other things that's, really are they're gonna be important for me to write this stuff down because I don't wanna look back and we're in July, and I'm like, "What have I really accomplished?" And, I don't know, accomplishment is connected to self-worth sometimes, um, so that's tough.
Well,
I wanna be able to
yeah.
accomplish stuff and feel good about myself,
I think it's a little consequence of age, at least for me. I'm
Mhm,
48, and I'm really thinking a lot about what I've accomplished in life and what I have left to accomplish. That's one of the pages in this journal that I'm doing. But um, it seems like it's way more in front of mind these days for me. Just you know, the clock is ticking.
yeah,
And if I've got things I want to do, I've got to start making serious progress and really make haste
mm,
to get things done.
what is that saying? "Put wings to your feet."
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
I think that's from The Prince and the Pauper. Our kids say that.
Yeah,
"Put wings to your feet."
make haste.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think experiencing loss does that too.
for sure.
It just
Just reminds us how fragile life is and how short. Yeah, we've got to. We've got to. I mean, life is such a gift, and oftentimes, and I don't think this is what we plan on talking about, but oftentimes it doesn't seem like a gift. Oftentimes, life seems like a burden, if I can be so honest.
mhm,
And I think it's worth reminding that life is a gift, and the amount of time we have and the opportunity that life affords us. I need to be reminded, and it's how I feel now. And you know, I'm in a interesting place in life. I think 2024 for us has been very much a year of transition in many areas in my career and in our ministry and relationships that we have. It's been, I think, the theme for me has been transition.
mm,
Um, as Christy alluded to, we've experienced a pretty big loss in our family. Christy's father went on to be with God, and it's just it seems I don't know. It's weird how life does that. How there seems to be transitions and changes and things seems to all kind of pile on top a short period of time. I don't know what that means, but I'm kind of committed to figuring out how God puts that in front of us for a greater good, because I do believe the word of God is true when it says that all things work together for the good of those that love him and are called.
Yeah, and the rest of that scripture is according to his purpose.
Mm.
So finding that, is really important.
So I know one of the things you wanted to do today was to talk about your theme and your word. That's something that you definitely are big on. And
Thanks,
while,
by the way, for making me get really emotional.
well, I mean, we're real people,
Ugh.
and I think we're talking about real things that people relate to that. But while you get your mind ready on that, I'm definitely not a person on setting a theme for my year, and I've never been big on that for a lot of the same reasons why I just talked about with New Year's resolutions. With that said, in me writing down a bunch of stuff, um, there does seem to be a theme for what I'm focusing on, at least at this part of 2025. I keep writing it in my journal almost every day. I write this one word, and it's execute.
Oh, good.
So I'm a person who can definitely be a victim of paralysis by analysis. Christie knows that. um, I tend to like to hash out all the details before I do anything, and that has been crippling to me in the past. So 2025 for me, to appease you, my
Oh,
word is execute.
excellent. That makes me feel very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. My word for 2024 was align.
Right. I remember you telling me
Mm,
that in January this time last year.
yeah, align. And I kept wondering, what in the world? Why is this why is this word coming to me? But it kept coming to me, whether through, reading books or posts or whatever. Yeah, so I do feel like we are in, I guess I don't know if I should say this or not, but I think we are more aligned and we are in a better position to move forward in some areas of our lives where we didn't feel that to be true,
Yeah.
in the first part of 2024. Well, you can just leave it at that. But I don't know where this came from actually, but somebody must have, you know, shared this somewhere about the word of the year kind of thing. And in 2019, it was probably October, September, October. I was reading about this word of the year thing, and um, man, it was. Um, it just came to me in November. The word embrace.
Embrace.
Yeah, and a little did I know that 2020 was just a couple couple months away, and COVID, and embrace was not the thing that we were doing. We with social distancing. But in 2020, we faced a whole lot of all of us, the whole world did, faced a whole lot of very difficult circumstances, and that was a year, very specifically, that I felt like I had lost my voice. I was a guardian ad litem
Hmm.
and had
You want to talk about that just for 30 seconds, what that means? Some people may not know what that is.
yeah, so I was a child advocate for children in the foster care system. So I would go and meet with them in their homes with their foster parents, and I would write reports. I would go to court and sit up with the lawyers, and just it's a volunteer position. But I would, because I was unbiased, I wasn't paid, I wasn't a social worker, I wasn't a lawyer. I was just somebody who cares about these kids, who are in some really difficult situations. And so I would give recommendation toward reunification with birth family, or maybe guardianship with an aunt or uncle, or toward adoption with the foster family. And so, um, yeah, I had 6 kids on my caseload. It was a very busy time.
A lot of work for volunteerism.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I just,
No,
I
it's very meaningful work. I understand.
I work for free.
Yeah.
Dan's like,
Christy
"What?"
likes that's what we're laughing at. That's the inside joke is Christy's favorite jobs are the ones that don't pay her.
Yeah. So, anyway, so I felt like, so there was a situation with, being a guardian ad litem and really fighting for a child, who needed permanency with his foster family and did not get that. Like, just felt like my voice wasn't heard. There was some ministry stuff that I was going through where I felt like my voice was not heard. Um, I don't wanna sound prideful about that, but it was like it had been heard for so long, and then it just wasn't
Yeah.
heard. So it was like just this kinda shock and, like, confusion. Then, there was a situation with our family where, again, like, I just felt silenced, and, so anyways, I embraced some really difficult things that year, and into 2021, my word was carve. So, by the way, 2020's word was embrace, but it was not in the physical form, giving hugs and all that kind of stuff, what you
Yeah.
think. I felt this drawing toward embracing difficult conversations,
Hmm.
specifically surrounding conversations that I was
Mhm.
avoiding, you know, um, and then 2021 was the word carve. November, it seems like November is the month where I'm not even looking for the word. It's like the word finds me, and I know you probably think that's so woo woo too, but
It's all the turkey talking.
yeah, well, maybe it is.
Turkey and stuffing. Carve. Never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Now I got it. Okay. So I was like fighting that word big time.
Mhm.
Like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not. That's not my word. That's too painful of a word. I'm not doing it. And it just kept coming up. And so I brought something because I want to show this to you. It was the December. I think it was my birthday, December 9th. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay. This is a gift that our son gave to me.
Did I help make?
Thank you. But the word carve, um, was so painful. I was in therapy actually for quite a few months in 2021 and 2020, trying to figure out like why was I silenced? What in the world is happening here? Lots of confusion. And and so when talking to my therapist, uh, she's so wonderful. She had said, maybe it's not the chisel. Because I'm thinking how painful, it is to carve something. Thinking if I'm wood, right? That sounds crazy probably, but it sounds like a painful process. And and she's like, No, why can't it just be a consistent flow of water over a stone? It can be a soft thing. It doesn't have to be so aggressive and rough and but she helped me so much to know that like over time people can change. Well, some people can change who want to change, I guess.
People can change. They don't always change.
I think it's a choice.
Right.
So anyway, so our son gave me this for my birthday, and he had pulled this and cut this from the root. This is a root of a tree, and then made this beautiful display for me. And I feel like the Lord was kind of leaning toward, or I was leaning toward the word carve being okay. Fine, I embrace some difficult things, but in 2020, but 2021. I've got to get to the root of the issue of these things, and I bawled my eyes out when our son gave this to us
Mhm.
for my birthday because it was a confirmation of that word carve.
So that was which year?
2021.
21.
And so I had to get to the root of some issues, and again, this was through a lot of therapy, which, by the way, I think there should not be such a stigma surrounding needing
Agreed.
some extra help sometimes to process in an objective voice.
Yep.
But anyways, I love this. It's on our bookshelf. It speaks to me every time I look at it. I will kind of do a check on how am I feeling right now and okay, what's the root of that? Because we've got to dig deep sometimes. We've got to uncover some really ugly stuff in our lives and figure out we got to unearth it. We can't just keep covering it up
Yep.
because it's going to come back and it's not healthy that way. But anyways, I've talked too much, so
So what? Okay, so 2024. What was your word? Do you remember?
Align.
Align. That's right.
Uh-huh.
All right. So we're in 25. Do you know what your word is?
Well, so the word silly is the word that I really feel drawn toward. Um,
Brantley is not keen on that. Our son.
no. No, he's not. So I told him I'll have a serious word as well. I'm late. It hasn't come to me yet.
Oh, that's fine. I think sometimes that happens.
Yeah. I usually get it in November.
Well,
And
look, I have the word,
oh yeah.
and
Execute.
so I don't usually have a word. I think this is the first time I have a word. I'm not saying I have a word, but it's what appears in every day's notes to myself and what's on my mind. I, I think um, I think it's time for us to execute a lot of the things that we've been thinking about doing and changes that we've been equipped to change and grow in areas that we've wanted to grow. I think it's time that we execute, make it happen.
Mm,
Um, Talk is cheap and action is rare. And I
mm,
think it's time that for Dan and hopefully I lead my family in some of these changes, positive changes that, we make it happen, by
mm.
God's help. And we just team together and have the resolve and the fortitude to make the changes and see growth where we need it so desperately. So I know a lot of things we've already started, and things that we're not ready to talk about quite yet on this platform. But there's 2025 has to be a year of progress and execution. That's something that I'm committed to doing for our family and for myself.
Which leads me to ask this question I've been asking you a little bit to
Mm.
think about. If we're not helping our future self, are we self-sabotaging?
Yeah, that's a deep one. So the question is, if we're not helping ourselves, are we sabotaging our future?
If we're not helping our future selves. So
Yeah.
this was something. This is so silly, and it's just a small thing that you reap the benefits of. Um, every night when I'm doing the dishes and loading the dishwasher and starting it, I always put a K cup in the Keurig. I just put it in there so
Thank you.
that in
Thank
the
you for that.
well, you're welcome. So in the morning when you stumble to the coffee pot, or if I stumble to the coffee pot, it's there. It's just one less little thing. I don't have to open the K cup container, search for the coffee. I just put it in there, and I even put your cup there. All you have to do is open the fridge and pour a little bit of cream in. Okay. To me, that's a small way to help your future self. Okay. So that's the perspective that I am coming to you with. That's something simple, very simple.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think small things piled on top of each other end up being great monuments. And um, I actually love the concept and totally agree with it. I think that if you're not, so let's not even go to the actual statement that you made. Let's talk about if you are right. So I think everybody can agree and see that little changes in the positive that help your tomorrow are positive and ultimately determine your success. So there's a thought I had, and maybe it'll be a whole podcast episode in the future, but it's ultimately a sermon that I'm developing. And the thought is that pain is an absolute in life, and pain is an extreme word, but discomfort, sacrifice, whatever you want to call it, however you want to categorize it, but
Suffering.
suffering, yeah, that's what I
Mhm,
actually meant to say.
mhm,
It's an absolute in life. It's going to happen. But the interesting thought I had was the dichotomy between voluntary suffering and involuntary suffering.
mhm.
And putting a K cup at night is not clearly not suffering, but it is a extra thing you do. It's really can be categorized with you hear about some people putting out their clothes the night before. When you have to get up early, or some people even iron clothes and put them all. Really go to the nth degree. But all of it is voluntary sacrifice, suffering, work, whatever you want to call it, all for the hope and I wouldn't even say it's hope, it's a guarantee that tomorrow is going to be a little better, even if it means just a little easier when your eyes are crossed in the morning and you don't feel like making a decision on what to wear, or digging a K cup out when you can't barely see. Um, so what's interesting to me is that the difference between that voluntary sacrifice, let's use the word sacrifice, even though I've been focusing on suffering because that's the core of what a lot of people are dealing with in the world today, but voluntary sacrifice versus involuntary sacrifice. So if you volunteer to do it, I feel like it always yields better growth, strength. Whereas if you don't volunteer to sacrifice, life has a way of forcing sacrifice on you,
Mhm.
and pain and suffering. And
So do you know why that is? Do you have any ideas of why it is voluntary suffering is easier?
well, I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it is easier. I think it's
Well,
not about. I think suffering is suffering. Sacrifice is sacrifice, right? If you volunteer $5 into your savings account, right, that's a sacrifice. You put $5 away. That $5 now can grow because of interest and all
mm,
the financial instruments that can make positive changes in your tomorrow. Whereas if you don't do that voluntarily, life has a way of grabbing that $5 is going to disappear out of your pocket.
mm. So what I'm getting at is I think there's a difference. So it may not be easier to voluntarily suffer, but it is easier when we have a sense of control over the choices that we make that may still lead to suffering, but we have
Yeah.
to listen. Okay,
There's
I
nobody to
have
blame
a
but
I
yourself.
have a whole long list of
Yeah.
areas of my life and our lives where there's been suffering, and it really can stem from a need to control.
Hmm.
So do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. And yeah, I think that definitely has a part in this concept. But so yeah, so for sure. I think it is easier, at least it appears to be easier to go through a difficult thing, a sacrifice, suffering, whatever you want to call it, when you chose it because you're in control.
Mm,
And there's nobody to blame but yourself. It is what it is. And sometimes it doesn't even feel like sacrifice. It could, to me, I think, again, I can think of a lot of examples, but when you choose to sacrifice or choose to suffer, whether it be going to the gym or, you know, being responsible with your money and saving, or, spending, getting up 30 minutes earlier and, praying and devotion, all those things, I think when you choose it, that self-sacrifice, especially often enough, it almost doesn't feel like sacrifice anymore. It
mhm,
becomes part of who you are. But I guess that's a truth, and I think that is a universal truth. But I guess what I'm super interested about is the result of that. You know what I mean? So, what is the difference? Is there a difference? I think
mm,
there is, but what is
mhm.
the difference between the results of voluntary sacrifice versus involuntary sacrifice?
Yeah, so you use the gym analogy. So I'm gonna I wish I could do this. Go to the gym every
Put it
day.
out there, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be
I've
written in
not written
ether.
it down though, okay? Um, so so going to the gym, that's a self-sacrifice,
It
so to
is
speak,
100%. It is,
and that makes you feel good about yourself.
and furthermore, it's not just. I mean, going to the gym is not just self-sacrifice; it's pain and suffering.
Yes.
It's
Yes,
voluntary pain and
for
suffering.
days.
100%.
Yeah, because you're sore. Okay, so but you can feel good about that because it was your choice to make.
Hmm.
And so while you mentioned before, you're driving to the jujitsu gym and you're like, this is the last thing I want to be doing right now.
Yeah,
But you're doing it afterwards. It's because you have this reward. It's this reward
endorphins,
in
health.
your brain, right?
Yeah,
You're okay, I've done something you've accomplished something,
yep.
you've
Growth.
set a goal, you've accomplished it. You feel good. It's going to impact your eating habits because you've just worked so hard to burn all those calories, all that stuff. Okay. So then somebody who imposes a sacrifice on you, or you have to sacrifice or suffer in a way that you didn't choose, I believe leads to bitterness and resentment.
Mm.
Again, it goes back to what you can control and what you can't control, which, newsflash, it's all an illusion. You don't control anything. I mean, only yourself. That's it. We have this desire to control everything and everyone. and it's ego, and I won't get into that whole thing, but I could, but I won't. I guess we can do it another time, but man, I think it leads to resentment and bitterness when somebody, you know, like, okay, for example, for so many years, you would put our tax return into savings. You hear people getting their tax return and man, they blow it. And
Yeah.
then
Oh yeah.
whatever,
We're
whoever.
we're guilty. We did that for years. Yeah.
But like, so fine, they can do that. No
Hmm.
judgment there. We felt like we had to make that sacrifice. I think you gave me like we each took like $100 and was like, "Hey, let's go blow this $100." And we were like so happy with that because we were like, "No, we have to sacrifice.
Yeah.
We had to put this away." Now, if we didn't do that and we didn't have that rainy day money or whatever we use that for, and a great need arose, we'd be in a real tough situation and we would be bitter at ourselves, bitter at the person who or the organization, business that was asking for money. Like it's just
Could have been bitter at life. Could have been bitter at the
yeah,
system. Everything. And
and
so many
resentful.
people are.
Mhm, and
And
making excuses and
I think you nailed it here. To me, this is the thesis around the thought, and maybe it'll end up being something between a blog post or a book. But
mm,
you know, when you and finances and personal health are great ways to me. Like there's three obvious ways to demonstrate this principle.
mm,
Personal finance, personal physical health,
mm,
and personal spiritual health. I think all three of those demonstrate
mm,
the power in the difference between voluntary, let's use the word sacrifice, but suffering is there too. Voluntary sacrifice versus involuntary. So, Christy just, mentioned we did that, not only tax returns, but it was like
any
any
bonuses?
bonuses I got,
Mhm,
which in my, professional career, for, the most part of, I don't know, past, decades, I've been getting an annual bonus. And sometimes it was pretty significant. And it's very tempting, not to be too transparent here. And this is not to brag or anything, but, it would be like go buy a new fancy car kind of money.
mm.
And I think I did that one year. I did buy a Mustang for my bonus, but but
That's been
one
20
time,
years
yeah,
ago.
one time. So forgive me, but 99% of the time, we would take that money and put it away, invest it, save it, and yeah, Christy's right. I would be like, hey, guess what? You get $100 to spend,
Yeah,
which
and we
was
thought that was a big deal.
we
We were like, "At
did,
least we got something."
but because we conditioned ourselves for that,
Mhm,
and it wasn't only preventing ourselves from being bitter when a rainy day came. Um, it enabled us to seize opportunities. And we don't have to go into detail, but it enabled us to seize opportunities that produced multiplying financial wealth for our family. Because we did that, because we made
mhm,
those sacrifices, it opened up opportunity for us to seize a blessing or
mhm.
whatever you want to call it, and it wouldn't have been there. So
So this is like, if you're not helping your future self, then you could really be self-sabotaging.
that's a perfect example. If we didn't make those choices, and I know everybody starts rolling your eye. People are probably turning this podcast off right now. The minute you start talking about saving money, everybody feels really attacked in my experience. If they're not doing it, they're like, I don't want to hear about that. But man, it's just a simple thing.
Mm,
Like it doesn't hardly even it doesn't seem like sacrifice to us to take money from a tax return and put it away. It's not part of your income
right,
that you
we're
normally
not, like,
expect.
missing
Yeah,
it.
you're not missing it. Just put it
Mhm,
away, save it. Don't
mhm,
go buy, don't go on a vacation, don't do whatever. Just save it.
mhm,
And I can almost guarantee you that there's going to be an opportunity in the future that present day sacrifice enables. And
mhm,
most of the time, they are transformative
mhm,
if you can do that. And
mhm,
finances is one way, but personal health,
mhm,
pushing that Twinkie aside,
mhm,
getting up a little early, staying up a little later, whatever whatever your style is, to go, exercise and take care of yourself. You think about the opportunities that's going to enable. Let's take it to a spiritual dimension.
mhm.
How many people have to retire early who are too tired? How many think about this. Let's not even say, oh, when I'm 65, I can't be in the ministry anymore. No. What about when you're 45 and you're just so tired because you've wrecked your body by poor decisions and impulsivity? And it's 6 o'clock and God's nudging you to call somebody and you're like, I am exhausted because you're not healthy. Right. And this is a practical example. I don't mean to be attacking or accusatory to anybody, but man, I just think that I am reinvigorated to think about voluntary sacrifice and have a different perspective on pain.
Mhm.
Sorry, the sun is deciding to shine into my office
I
and
love that.
well, it's ruining the
Hey,
video. My
listen.
face is literally glowing right now.
Well, and maybe you're just speaking some truths
The
that the
Lord is
Lord is
affirming
shining,
it.
yeah,
Okay,
shining right down on.
not great for videography, but I'll take it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I man, I think that is a powerful truth for people to get a hold of. Um, choose choose to take up your cross and choose to make the sacrifices today, and it's almost guaranteed that tomorrow will be better in greater
Mm,
ways. I
yeah.
wrote down I don't know where I did. Actually, it was my daily journal. I wrote down Ephesians Ephesians 3:20, right?
Mhm.
Exceedingly abundant above all we ask and think.
Mm.
What
According to the power that worketh within you, Dan
what is
Ponjican.
that power? Now most people agree it's the Spirit of God that and that is correct in the
So
spirit.
let's just quote that verse. Now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we could think,
Ask or
ask,
think.
or think.
Hmm.
Think, imagine, above all that we can ask or
By the way,
think.
that word "think," if you go into the Greek, it is better translated, and a lot of versions do translate it as "imagine."
Yeah. So now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above
Yep.
all that we can ask or think according to the power that is at work within us.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so just to quote that verse.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason why I wrote that down and why it's coming to mind today is what if it's not even a what if. I think you can make the scriptural case that it is absolutely true that that is contingent on you making the personal sacrifice to take up your cross daily, right? The financial stewardship, the spiritual sacrifice, all the things that you need to do to position yourself for the exceedingly abundant above what you can ask or think.
Yeah, and so what is the power that is at work within you? I don't know, I can't say that it would be different for every person, but I do think that there's this drawing toward the power being the Holy Spirit. How do we let it work within us? I think that's the question. What powers are at work within you? That will determine the ability, I believe, of God to do the exceeding abundant above all that we ask.
Yeah. Um, I was talking to somebody, and we're gonna have to cut this podcast short here. So we'll wrap up here shortly because my hard drive is almost full. I need a new
Oh,
computer.
jeez. Okay.
But I was talking to somebody about pain and suffering, and the conversation was unrelated. But I made this statement that really ties into this thought that I've been talking about. Is I don't think God has the same perspective on human suffering as we do. A lot of people, and especially people that are bitter and angry at God and, are prone to atheist thinking and, why would God let suffering, blah, blah, blah. And I think that God sees this value side of suffering in humans. And I think that's the root of why I've been thinking about this and want to explore this thought more is because how much good can come out of suffering when we just turn it off and think about, uh, it's just devastating. It's not anything good that can come out of this. It's a pretty powerful thought.
Mm-hmm. Wanna this is probably down another rabbit hole, but, like, think of hunters and gatherers, and hunger could be a type of suffering, couldn't it? And if we didn't have that in our lives, in our early years of human existence, we wouldn't have been pushed forward. Like, there has to be a problem in order for there to be a solution. And so the problem of pain and suffering leads to something always. Like, some people will say there's a reason for everything. I will sometimes say that. I don't think you agree with that. Um, but I do think that obstacles, facing difficulty, challenges, they push us forward. They make us greater. They make us stronger. They could, or they couldn't. I guess it's again back to choice. Anyways, okay. Well, looks like we've got to wrap up here. Can we do
No, go
this?
ahead. No,
Okay. Are you
keep
sure?
going. Keep going.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I was just saying, there's great benefit, I think, in learning from our experiences and the suffering that we experience. And so, what my suffering looks like could look so different than yours. And you could look at my suffering, and not that you would do this because you love me very much, but you could almost scoff at it and be like, "Ugh, that's not suffering.
Oh, for
Are you
sure.
kidding me?" Like,
I think people do that all the
I
time.
know. Why is that?
We're selfish.
We're so selfish.
Yeah.
Hmm. I don't know. I think we've got to look past, like, okay, so there was a message that you spoke a while ago, and it was entitled "There's More Going On." And so I think that when we face suffering and when we face difficulty, we have to realize that it's not just the surface of what's going on. Again, going back to my root, the root issue here, there's more going on that we may not see. But like you said, that all things are supposed to work together for the good to them who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Oh man, it's a lot to think about for sure.
All right. So in our closing, why don't you
Yeah.
talk us through these cards and let's do
Well,
this.
so this is something that we did over Christmas, and I've gotten the Celebrate You card, and then I also got the Hope set, and this
Hmm.
one is You Matter. And these are so fun. They're little I don't know, pop open cards. And so I
By the way,
asked,
they have a super cool sound as I open mine in the microphone. I love it. It's so
so
wonderful.
ASMR,
Wonderful.
Dan. Okay, so this one's called You Matter, and these are just sweet. So I told Dan I'd love to open one and read it for you guys,
All
not
right.
open
So
mine too.
I'm not on video. So if you got to open yours right in the mic, though, put it right in the
Oh,
mic
okay.
in the front. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. All right, you read yours first. My video, sorry everybody watching, but the video cut out on my camera, so you're gonna have to look at Christy for the rest
Oh,
of the podcast.
no. Okay, "You Are Loved, You Are Important, and You Matter" by Christie Joyner, spelled the
Oh,
same exact way as my name is.
interesting.
Okay, that's mine.
So mine is a quote by Douglas Pagels, Pagels, Pagels. Not familiar with this individual, but it says, "Your presence is a present to the world."
Oh, that's right.
Very nice.
Oh, I love that. I'm feeling very intimidated that
Yeah, that's
this is
oh,
all.
that it's all you.
Yeah,
Well,
kind of not loving that,
well,
but
on that note,
yeah.
if you want to donate a couple $1,000s for Dan to buy a new computer to enable this podcast to be longer, then just kidding. I'm actually gonna. I'm very tempted to go buy one right now.
Hmm,
Um,
get out of the house.
thank you, everybody. Short
Yeah.
podcast today, but happy New Year. I hope your New Year is going to be awesome. I hope you're being intentional about your spiritual, personal, and financial growth. We'll dig into all those in the future a little more. I think we got some topics that I want to do around personal finance, and I'm excited about that. And Christy, thanks for pushing me to do this today.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I love how our conversation just grew, and we've got some really good things to continue talking about and thinking about and bettering ourselves with. So, thanks for pushing me.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.